What's the worst case of someone taking credit for someone else's work you've ever seen? I wrote and commented my name into software for a large oil field service company. When I was done, I let other people in the company use it. It worked extremely well and became very popular. My co-worker decided to take credit for it and got quite a bonus for his work. After I showed my boss my JIT history and comments, I was told to stop being petty and that I shouldn't try and take credit for someone else's work. I quit shortly afterwards. This is probably one of the ones from this thread that annoys me the most. Everyone is saying to somehow timestamp your work or whatever to prove it's yours in the future. You actually do this and your boss ignores it. What a prick. My boss got an award that was considered to be an industry best practice for not one but two of my programs I developed. She got all the credit. I did all the work and I didn't even get a high five, let alone a nice work. Squonky. Nice work. Squonky. I recently talked a prisoner out of a noose around his neck and got him to hand over his improvised weapons without the need for a tactical intervention, but on the incident report the manager said he did it. This is especially heinous because you saved a life. I don't know if it helps, but I commend you. You did good. In grad school, I gave a draft of one of my papers to a prof for feedback. Didn't hear crap from him. Then he announces a seminar a few weeks later with almost the same title as the paper. White flags everywhere I go into the seminar and bam, he's presenting my freaking work, and I guess he just expected I wasn't going to say anything cause he's a prof. It was ridiculous because I completely don't know what he thought he'd do or how he'd get away with this crap. It was a decade ago, but even then there were electronic paper trails a mile long. So ? I throw my hand up and he's ignoring me. I swear he was pretending not to see me. But then the pompous butthole actually says, "Yes, Bill Bapapa," he freaking acknowledged me by name. So I asked, "You didn't cite me even once. Don't you think you should have at least done that?" To which, "I'm not sure what you mean. Do you a conference or journal paper on a similar topic? I must have missed it, but I'd be happy to include it if you give me the title and source." So it was all I could do not to really lose it, but I did cut him off with, "The paper was the one I gave you 2 weeks ago, which you've ripped pretty much all of this research from word for word. And I'm not sure yet when it'll be published, but you'll be happy to know I submitted it to a journal just after I didn't hear back from you." People were pretty stunned. It was only like 30, maybe 40 people in the room, but they were all quiet from there. I ended up having a nice talk with the department head, and that prof was disciplined, but I know he was still the rest of the term. I did get a half-assed sorry about the confusion email from the guy. So I was in grade school. The teachers let us kids play on Funbrain after we're done with our work on the computers. I didn't have one at home, so this was the crap. I'd get on and play the arcade mode tons. Well, I got pretty far. It'd give you a password after you beat a new game, which would allow you to keep your progress. Now, I was playing for 6 months when I finally got farther than everybody else. I beat, I believe, Mighty Guy 2, which frick that fricking game. Impossible to beat. So I got the password Smell 6. It was bugged, though, so you couldn't get any farther. It would just let you play the games before that. And, being the good friend I am, I gave it to my friend who sucked crap at all the games. He just wanted to be able to play the games before that, so why the heck not? But that mother gave it to the cool guy in school, and that motherfucking piece of crap went around giving it to all the girls and saying it was his. I heard him make up crappy lies the whole time. I stood there dumbfounded, and the girls seemed impressed. And, yes, it was my password. It gave you a new randomly generated password each time you beat a level, and everybody was fricked with the Smell 6 glitch. I grinded back up to that point after that and got a new code that wasn't glitched. Max, if you read this, you son of a b, I still remember your transgressions over a decade later, and I'm never going to forget them. If it makes you feel any better, the girls most likely didn't give a crap about the save password, just wanted to look impressed for the cool guy. I was the co-owner of a games studio late 90s or mid 2000s. It was a large studio and we employed 55 people. So one day myself and 2 of the directors, all programmers, were looking those CVs that had been received when we came across one. Hey Jimmy, did you write Game X? Yeah, for the Spectrum and Amstrad. Well, this CV says it was written by this guy in his spare time. Let's bring him in for an interview. HR would not let me interview him, but we sent a strongly worded letter back telling him that he was lying on his CV and to knock it off. The twist is that your co-worker is the person who is lying. Elliot Ness, the guy from the book movie The Untouchables, didn't really bring Al Capone down. It was a group of people from the Treasury and Justice Department. He just took credit for it in a book he wrote and Hollywood went with it. Yeah, that one shoots me off. Years ago I was an ad guy supporting a law firm. One of the lawyers was a pretty chill dude and brought in his personal laptop with a cracked screen to be repaired. I fixed it in exchange for legal advice about an payment app I was developing. It dealt with government money, so there were a lot of rules attached. He told me some things were illegal, but I was mostly right. The technical hurdles were too big for me at the time. 2 years later, I find a similar business online. I want to see how they're doing things. It's doing the easy way he said was illegal. I also find his face on the About Us page a seer. He left the firm to start this business he stole from me with a 2-year head start. Report him to the local bar association. If you have any proof, they will probably take it very seriously. My boss told me and my friend to decorate the inside of the store with Christmas lights and decorations. It took us 4 hours and a crap ton of stupid Bud Lights. One light goes out, they all go out. But it was badass looking with deers drinking blue light water and a cool butt blow up Santa we found in the back. The boss comes back and hates it, but because it took 4 hours for us to do, he did not want to try and fix it. So the next day the boss is not at work. So I ask where he went and they tell me that he got the day off and got $1,000 and a microwave for his awesome decoration skills. He did not tell me and my friend that the decoration was for a company contest. He just kept the money for himself and gave us nothing. I quit the next day, after he told everyone how he did all the work while my friend helped. He didn't even remember that I was helping too. Total dong lamp. Literally so many artists are DeviantArt, from tracing or recoloring, to outright downloading and reposing pieces. Also fanfiction. People would take a fic, change some simple elements, and repost it. My boss was taking credit for when I saved the company money. She was trying to tell her boss what she was doing and the boss realized it was me who basically organized the inventory of all the medical supplies, and also saved her $2,500 per building. Also got rid of supplies we had no need to use. Eventually I left the position and my boss quit cause she couldn't hack it. My best mate always repeats my jokes to the rest of the group and they laugh harder than when I tell them. Breaks my heart, but I know he doesn't mean harm. I was doing a field study at a customer site. Lots of work. Had to stay on site for 2 weeks gathering data and make sure we were getting samples from the right places. I input all the data, make a great mass balance, and do lots of math to prove this reaction was happening. Overall great work. I send it over to the research guy before issuing the official report. He removes my name and sends it out to everyone before I could even react. Luckily he got fired finally after he was unable to answer basic questions on the study. Years ago I had a boss that would get assigned a task from his boss and then immediately assign it to someone else. But he would always do it in person, so there wasn't a paper trail. Once I got my work stolen enough times I decided to get back at him. It was a project that needed information gathered. A whole bunch of us including his boss were involved in the meeting to check on it. His boss tells him to present. My boss tells me to present. I turn to the room and go, I was supposed to research this? You never assigned it to me. Did I miss an email? I'm sorry. His boss is livid. You delegated but never followed up. When did you send him the email? He just froze and started apologizing. I never got his stupid projects anymore. I just wanna mention Margaret Keane, who lived in her husband's shadow painting amazing works of art, which he stole and sold under his own name. Worst case I've seen personally. A friend's music track was taken by a big recording studio and sold off by them without crediting her. Amazing works of art is debatable, but anyway, there is a movie about her and Lana Del Rey made a song for that movie, Big Eyes. Just thought I'd tell you in case you don't know already. It's a nice movie. Putin taking credit for the happy and fat decade in Russia. The years when we had nice economic growth were caused primarily by the growing oil price. And the people whose actions allowed this growth were Kasyanov, Illarionov, Gref, Kudrin. So many Russians love Putin for giving them these years of prosperity while in fact he is the one responsible for ending them. But that hot Crimean attorney general though. Almost everything Edison ever invented was stolen, as the butthole had all day to steal people's ideas working in a patent office. He then had the gall to exploit people for using his inventions, bankrupting many, which is pretty much the story to why the film business moved to the West Coast, as it was the only reasonable answer to get away from the prick. At one point the butthole even electrocuted an elephant to make Tesla's alternating current AC invention look dangerous in comparison to DC. The worst thing is that's not even the worst of what Edison did to Tesla. Long story short, Edison was a total freaking butthole. And yet many utility companies today still have Edison in their name despite the modern grid being based on Tesla's work. Worked for a company that sells phone hold systems. Got a random call from a guy that worked for a large company that was buying over 100k from the known company in the industry. Ours was digital and way cheaper. So much cheaper he stopped his purchase and was decided to buy with us. It was the company's biggest sale and the commission I was to get was over $12,000. From the one sale, the owner learned of it and took the sale from me after it was all but closed, saying that I wasn't with the company long enough to do that size of a sale. For me, $12,000 would have changed my life, but all this douche did was buy new tires for his BMW and partied. I was an intern at Disney ESPN Wide World of Sports when they were developing the Disney Fit games. Pretty much CrossFit, but they couldn't call it CrossFit. I suggested the logo be a kettlebell with Mickey Mouse ears. One of the senior VPs of sales or something, notoriously known for being a butthole, scoffed and said it was a dumb idea out loud in front of everyone. The very next meeting, revisiting the logo, he presented a digital design of the exact same thing I suggested, which is the same logo, slightly rendered, that they use today. I made a suggestion to the head of product at my soon-to-be ex-job about a way to improve the interface of our SaaS platform. He then went back to his department and told his colleague, who he was unaware as my GF, that he just had a great idea on how we could improve the interface. I promptly emailed the CEO my idea and CC'd the guy in, as I knew he'd already have told the CEO, hence making him look like the dickhead he is. Not a real example, but the movie Gentlemen Broncos is exactly why I don't let people read my manuscripts without registering them first. It's a rare occurrence for another writer to steal another's work or manuscript and pass it off as their own. It's hard to get away with, and most writers, as well as other artists, operate on a level of mutual respect. Still, I won't say it never happens. My mom worked on writing launch software for the space shuttle back in the 80s. I guess things weren't as sexist and racist as they were in the 60s, but she was an immigrant and couldn't speak English all that well and was taken advantage of all the time. She found a lot of critical errors, the kind that would cause things to blow up, and her co-workers would take credit for it and get promoted. She did end up winning a Silver Snoopy, which was nice, but she never made it far up the chain of command. When I was in high school, there was this stuck-up guy in my art class who, upon hearing that these two girls were picking Alice in Wonderland as the topic for their end-of-year art project, said that he'll teach them how it's done and proceeded to pick the same topic as well and told the teacher he was working alone. He then proceeded to find a picture of Alice in Google Images, DeviantArt or whatever, printed it out, then used an overhead projector to trace the entire thing. He colored it in, and when it was time to present our projects, he smugly presented it to the class and the teacher seemed pretty impressed. I know that tracing is good and all, but don't use it, show someone up and be all high and mighty about it. Tracing requires some skill, but in the end of the day you didn't draw it. Psst, you don't have to say nice things about tracing. Second job out of university was getting paid just under $30k per year. Came across some uncollected printing at the printer one day. Supervisor was getting $120k per year and a $25k bonus. $5k for each of 5 bonus targets. 4 of those tasks were tasks that he'd delegated to me. Same job. Months later, different supervisor. This one was apparently a literal millionaire. Brought a few ideas to supervisor and had them shot down. A few weeks later, Head of the production was talking about how he'd just had a meeting with the CEO and my supervisor and how my supervisor had come up with a few really interesting ideas. I had to leave the room. Frick that place. I used to work for a large telecommunications company in Australia. One day when I was managing the store, my regional manager and also the state division manager came to visit. We were idly discussing ways to improve customer service experiences with staff to generate higher NPS, Net Promoter Score. I had already drafted a form that I brought to them. It gives your customer direct contact details back to the original consultant she dealt with. It also explains the process of changes you have made on their account and also what their next bill would look like, including pro rata charges and all service charges that usually go unexplained to the customer. The form prevented bill shock. It informed the customer and also provided the customer with a direct channel to get back in contact with the exact staff member that first changed their account. At the time they both played down the idea as difficult and too hard as it created too much micromanagement for staff. It was a waste of consultants' time and they felt customers would wait longer as well. Basically they shut me down in a polite and professional manner. About 2 months later this new initiative rolled out for all contracts to be given out to the customer with cover letters attached. These cover letters were apparently the one-stop information guide that customers must get. Our state division manager was featured in the company magazine with his own full-page featured spread about how innovative and genius his idea was. I cracked the royal chutes as you would. Although what was the most infuriating thing is that no one else was there when the handover of the form took place, so no one really believed me. I was so cut. Although not anymore because I bailed on that noise and found myself a better job where I get paid more to do less. The popular band Memphis Mayfire, at least a designer they trusted by mistake, stole a photo of my cousin for the cover art of Challenger. My cousin was pretty pee but the band was super cool about it and compensated her accordingly. Not sure what came of the designer who ripped off the image, but it's pretty cool that my cousin's face is on one of my favorite band's album covers. Had an internship for the Government Department of Energy. I was working on a little project and researching how to do it. Layoffs were happening and do try to save people. The lab had a presentation on people's work and projects at the lab. Developing technology. He presented first and it was my crap. I knew if I presented it would look like I copied this sucker because I'm an intern. So I said I had nothing. My boss called me to his office and yelled at me for wasting money when I had nothing to show for it and demanded to know what happened. The guy who stole my work was newly married, just had a baby, so he had a family to feed and his wife stayed at home. He must have been hurting for money. Instead, I took pity on him and said nothing. I'm a single college student and after the internship I go back to school. I take pity on him because he must have been desperate not to get laid off. So I kept my mouth shut and said nothing. I was let go. The department kept him. I am glad he was secure, but I do wish I said something to him or to my boss. Sometimes I think about sending an email to explain to him what happened. It does bother me that I lost a letter of recommendation, but oh well, I guess. So this is more of a tip. I heard from someone, IDK how correct it is, that you can send yourself a poor man's patent via mail to yourself for an idea. If someone takes it, you could have a fighting chance in court if it really important. Send it certified so you have a receipt and never open it so you have proof it was not tampered with. Then you mailed it to yourself. I was told this by an older family member also. I built a very successful Ecommerce store for a client, and they assumed that it was no big deal. Anyone who made an Ecommerce store made good money, so they went to another guy who said he could do better and build a better website than mine. He didn't. He made a pile of crap that stopped online sales dead in its tracks. So they went to another guy who claimed he could put my original site back together and improve it. 5 months later the website was still down. He was charging them hundreds of euros per month on hosting, research and coding. This gobshite then called me and asked for my help in setting up the payment gateway. So I called the client and told them this guy had no idea what he was doing, and if they wanted their Ecommerce store back they needed to give me full responsibility for it. They sent me an email confirming I had full authority over their Ecommerce website again. When I had it, I changed name servers of their website back to the original website I built, which was there and touched on their hosting account. It took less than 5 minutes to do, and my original website was back up and running. The second website guy they approached then sent them a bill for more than €1,000 for getting the website back online. I sent the client an email with a list of very technical questions to ask this guy, including what exactly he did over the previous months and how it culminated in getting the website back online. He sent a total bull summary of his work and his associated costs, and last I heard he is being sued by my client. The Willy Wonka golden ticket promotional idea is probably the best idea I have ever had. It's probably the best idea anybody has ever had. 3 days ago, I slipped 5 pieces of gold paper into random paper shipments. This entitles the customer to 10% off of their total order. It will be a day for them that is full of whimsy, and full of excitement and full of fantasy. Then White stole it. I post mashups as a hobby on YouTube. Some guy ripped my video, which was on 5k views, uploaded it without crediting me, and racked in 1.8 million on Facebook. I am a developer. I was assigned to a project with a department. I'd never done work for this group, but figured it would be just like all the rest. Nope. So, first, they introduced me to the manager, who has to be the biggest bro I've ever met in his 40s. I immediately felt like I'd been assigned a group assignment with a frat boy. Still, they just give me the specs and I write the code. How can you screw that up? We start by having a meeting where no fewer than 1/3 of the people there are angry that they were invited, when they already told bro that they weren't the people involved with this process, and that he needed to invite other people. Then we sort of talked the process over, and everyone left. I'd taken notes. I think I was the only one. So I compiled my notes and sent a follow-up email on the meeting that outlined what we'd talked about, and laid out 2 possible ways we could implement this system, and what I saw as the risks involved with either approach. Then, nothing. Now, I've been assigned to projects that got cancelled and no one told me before. So, I just went about my other projects, until my boss asked me in a regular progress meeting how the project was going. I told her I figured it had been cancelled because I hadn't heard anything after the first meeting. Another few weeks pass, and my boss keeps asking if I've heard anything from bro, or gotten any more information on what needed to be done. I sent her my email from after the meeting, explaining this is where we left it, and don't hear anything for another month or so. Now, my boss pulls me into her office and asks me, when did you write that email? And did you ask anyone's permission before writing this? etc. All very, very odd questions. I simply replied I took notes in the only meeting we had. I compiled them and sent them out to everyone that had been in the meeting. She motions over to her computer and opens a final analysis report of the project. It's my email, word for word, except where someone had gone through and Googled synonyms, because he thought we would run it through a plagiarism program. An adult, well into his 40s, plagiarized an email I wrote, and passed it off as a final report on a project, based on meetings we never had. Changing a few words here and there to get away with it was the real icing on the cake. He's a manager. He could have literally just told me he was going to use my email to present 2 options to management. I was assigned to work for him. So, yeah, that was special. TLDR. Manager at work passed an email I wrote off as a final assessment of work needed on a project he completely dropped the ball on. My dad was a major behind-the-scenes player in politics, journalism, and advertising from the late 50s up until the 90s. He knew a lot of big shots and was a part of many hugely important historical events. He was at a dinner party with Lyndon and later Bed Johnson, and he posed and shot the famous picture of them sitting beside one another on a bench. A photographer for a major journal snuck up behind him and snapped a shot and made a ton of money and prestige off of it. One of my siblings still has my dad's version, printed and framed, at a slightly different angle. I invented a software technique that one of my company's founders thought was impossible. Did a tremendous amount of work to get it successfully patented for them. Then at the very last moment before filing, he added his name as an inventor. I'm kind of mad nobody here is copy pasting top comments from this same post into this thread and not giving credit. You're slipping hard, Reddit. Watson and Crick didn't discover the double helix nature of DNA. Their co-worker Rosalind Franklin figured it out first. They saw her work and claimed the discovery for themselves. Not exactly true. Rosalind did all the legwork and research but hadn't figured out the structure. Watson and Crick went through her notes, got drunk in a bar and then figured out the structure. The travesty was when Rosalind didn't get any credit on the Nobel Prize. Stealing Facebook statuses, and then the person who steals the status gets much more likes and recognition than the OP. Makes me wanna get a vasectomy. It's the same as when you say a joke and only one person hears, then they repeat it and everyone laughs. Bastards. I was skating in Hawaii and got some sweet footage of me nailing a McTwist off of a hotel balcony only to have my dickhead friend steal credit for it. Freaking Eric Sparrow. The director of my old nursing school was telling a story as if she had lived it to a group of adoring freshmen as I walked down the hall. She was telling a story, starring her, from my personal life as if it happened to her. She just stared at me and kept right on talking, the recognition of being busted clear in her eyes. Evil old bee. Key and Peele, their video on being high on pot uses a very comical example of your question here, although taking it quite out of proportion. One time we were watching film in high school and my coach had bad eyes so he couldn't see our numbers and he said, "Man, that was great play right there. Good sack." Who was that? And this dude that barely played and was my backup was like it was me coach when in reality it was me. Stupid punk took credit for my sack. I watched film at a different time than he did so I wasn't in there. Not as bad as some of these, but part of my last final exams was the oral English exam. I'm German and that one was mandatory. You could choose to have them in other classes to get a better grade. We had to do a group talk. One of the girls on my group was really bad, but had really good arguments for our topic. That probably would have saved her from having to do the German oral exam to not fail the year. The other girl in the group had already decided that she'd repeat the year to get better grades. She still decided to read off of the first girl's notes and steal all her arguments as she had none. The first girl sadly didn't say anything during the exam and nothing could be done afterwards. She managed to get a good grade on the German exam though, so she didn't fail. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.